Yay. All right. We are back for another Coaching Corners conversation.
Yay.
Depending on where you find us. It's been a hot minute. So has anything changed for you since the last time we did this?
Oh my God, I'm not pregnant.
Ah!
Yeah.
There's no more baby in there.
It's fantastic.
Well, yay. How does it feel to not have all the carpally tunnels again?
Oh my God, amazing. I was wrapping presents the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, do you know how much it would have sucked to be pregnant in December? And then I couldn't wrap presents. And I was sitting on the floor when I was doing it. And Logan was like, you still could have wrapped presents, just maybe not on the floor. And I was like, no, my hands would not have let me. And he was like, oh my gosh, how quickly I forget
what you couldn't accomplish. Well, yay. Lovely, lovely. So, speaking of Christmas.
Yeah.
I think we decided on the holiday shit.
The holiday shit. Yep.
Because the holidays can be shit for a lot of people. One of the things that I was thinking about is like how much neurodivergency plays into that.
Yes. And how much neurotypical family members don't fucking get it.
That is also very, very true. Like, because I was thinking about like, so let's say you make plans and let's say you want to make these plans. Like, these aren't plans that you were grudgingly choosing to go to, even though you don't actually have to go to. But like, how much stress there is, like, doing the backwards count and making the lists and making sure, like, especially if you fall into the category of primary caretaker and you usually do all the emotional labor. So then you're mentally and physically helping everybody else get ready. Mm-hmm. And like, just so much stress. And that's on top of buying and wrapping and sorting and all of these things, everybody's presents.
Mm-hmm. And then you can also throw into the mix if you have family members that don't understand neurodivergent children and they have unrealistic expectations for your particular child or children and how they behave at the holidays.
And it doesn't help that they have unrealistic expectations for neurotypical children too.
Right.
Like, there's just layer upon layer.
Children should be seen and not heard.
Of fuckery, yes.
Children should only play when you press the play button and stop when you press the stop button.
Oh my God, I never thought about it that way, but yes, that's exactly what it's doing. And only if they play the correct way at the correct volume.
Right.
And never differ from that, never stray from that.
Yeah.
No wonder nobody likes going home for holidays. Right. Like, we're just talking about this and I'm already exhausted.
Yeah. It's even going to be interesting in our house because Logan has ADHD and this is his first year living with children. And we're jumping in and, you know, mine are 6 and 8 and they're loud. And one of them has ADHD. And as an adult with ADHD, he sometimes has auditory sensory issues himself. And so we're like navigating that. And so then there's going to be a big chunk where the kids are with us and not in school. And
yes, I am well familiar with that situation.
No.
It's like, it would be different if we had like these healthy humaning skills that we talk about all the time. Like, if we had that to begin with, the holidays would be a totally different experience, whether you're neurodivergent, whether you're neurotypical, whether your family is neurodivergent or neurotypical. Like, if we just had like these baseline. In fact, I was having a conversation with somebody the other day and we were going round and round in circles because like, I am trying to puzzle this from, you know, a place of healthy humaning and also in a way that I can explain it to somebody else because it's a thing that I just know to calculate for. Mm-hmm. But like the point that they were making is that what is reasonable is subjective. So you're talking about the auditory processing thing.
Yeah.
My ADHD child's level of noise may be reasonable to me, but not to them. But I was trying to explain, like, I'm also taking into account the time of day, what is going on, what is different about their routine. Is it a special holiday? Like, this volume, I would not find reasonable on your average Tuesday in an empty room, except for us.
Yeah.
But on a holiday, when there's a bunch of people around and they're very excited and they're off their routine, like, it is more understandable for them to be making that level of noise. And also, I think it is reasonable as the adults to regulate ourselves so that they have the space to do that for a little while. Like, not indefinitely, not forever, but like, let them be a kid.
Yeah.
And like, that's such a hard space to navigate.
Yeah. I mean, I think so much of just parenting in general and neurodivergency in general is hard to navigate. And then you combine them. And then, like you always say, there's so much nuance to it. And there's so many changing factors. It's not like, oh, let's get like a really good, like I can get really good at this being a neurodivergent parent, parenting in general, also to a neurotypical child and a neurodivergent child. But like every day is different.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yep.
Actual circumstances and situations, like, did they have school today? Did they start out the day with their dad, or did they start out the day with me? And then also just like emotional stuff. Who said what to them at school? And so emotionally, how are they feeling? Who said what to me? And emotionally, how am I feeling?
Yes. And like, my bottom line is, at least in this circumstances, because that's what we're talking about, is you are the adult. At the end of the day, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are conducting yourself in the best way possible, because you are modeling, you are impacting, you are like all of these things. And I was like, is that fair? Does that feel fair? No, probably not. Like, you know, you're experiencing a negative sensory thing, and if you talk to them about it, they're going to be experiencing a negative feeling, but you are the adult. And at the end of the day, it's on you to model how things should go. And do I think it is perfectly reasonable to say to my kid, hey, I've really got a headache right now. Can we take the volume down a little bit? And if in true kid fashion, either they say, no, I don't want to because I'm playing and having fun, or they just don't do it, then it is still on me to remove myself from the situation, not make them feel bad for existing, not tell them that they are being wrong just because they are doing what is absolutely perfectly normal for children to do. Right. And so like, and I think people who haven't had much practice with the healthy humaning skills in general, I think struggle even more because they were raised in an environment of, I told you to stop, so you need to stop. So they have this residual expectation of like, I am the adult, I have made the decision, you must conform. And it's like, well, no, that's not human-y of you.
Yeah. Yeah. That reminded me of two things. Number one, I read in a blog like a decade ago, this mom of two little girls, and she's like, I have to ask myself often, like, are my children doing something wrong? Or is their normal child behavior just really fucking annoying me today?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because it's not always that they're doing something wrong. So I try and remind myself of that often. What was the other thing that popped in my head?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, something that I often think about is like when I'm asking my kids, like, stop doing this, or please go do this other thing, put this away and go do this other thing, right? And like, it's so easy for adults to get annoyed that the child doesn't stop their behavior immediately and go and follow through with whatever the thing. But like 9 times out of 10, if another adult says to me as an adult, hey, would you go and get me a glass of water? Yeah, I'm in the middle of an email. I'm probably going to finish typing out my sentence, or maybe even the whole email before I go and do the thing. Like, I'm not it is so rare for me to stop what I'm doing immediately to do whatever they've requested. Right. And so why is it okay for us to have that same expectation of children, neurodivergent or neurotypical?
Right. Exactly. Nope. I have made that point many a time before too. And like, yes, have your feelings about it. Like, I totally get it. It does feel unfair sometimes. Like when you are worn down, you've had a hard day, you're stressed out, you are sensory overloaded. Last night, in fact, we started calling the sensory overload where like your skin tingles and stuff. We started calling that spicy skin. Like you've got spicy skin and like you're ready to climb the walls. And like, yes, it feels so unfair that you still have to be the adult. And I was like, and also it wouldn't be so hard if somebody had helped you through this process from the time that you were a young child. Yeah. And it only feels hard now because you are learning how to do it now. If you had been taught from the beginning, as you should have been, which is not your fault, it wouldn't feel hard. It would just be what you do.
Right. And for so many of us with the parenting aspect of it, it's like, but that was expected of me as a child. Sure. How did that feel?
Yes.
How do you look back on that now?
That's one of
Is that really what you want to keep going?
Exactly. Because that's one of my 2 questions is how did that feel for you when this was your experience at this age? And also, how would you feel if another adult walked up to you and did that right now?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, not good. Okay, so you are an adult and you have the ability to regulate your emotions and control how you respond to the situation. And now, how do you expect a child who doesn't have nearly the life experience that you do to respond the way that you think is appropriate?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so what are, kind of pivoting a little, what are, like, for you personally, what are some of the challenges that you face around the holidays?
I don't anymore, actually.
Okay.
I don't. My holidays are literally exactly what I want it to be. So I sit back and I help other people through their holidays because I literally don't do anything that I don't want to do. I don't cook. I don't clean extra for people. I mean, like, my house is generally people ready. I don't go anywhere that I don't want to. I don't, like, I will, even if I'm hosting, I will disappear if I'm overwhelmed. And like, people who come to my house know that any one of us might just disappear for a while. And like, that's just how it is.
Yeah.
I don't buy gifts for people that I don't feel inspired to. Yeah. So I sit back and I help other people, which is where I got the idea for the holiday helpline. But like, so my favorite thing that I've helped somebody through, I can tell you this, is for 3 years, I had both parties of a couple, unbeknownst to each other, coming to me and saying, I don't want to go to my in-laws. I fucking hate it. I am miserable every fucking time. And for 3 years, I told each of them, you don't actually have to go. You can have a conversation with your spouse that says, I don't want to go. I'm uncomfortable. I'm miserable. And then you get annoyed and uncomfortable and miserable because I'm uncomfortable and miserable. And like, we could just stop this whole cycle if I just don't go. 3 years. Finally, last year, both of them did not go to their in-laws. And I was like, oh my God. And you know what? Nobody died.
Nobody died.
Nobody died. And the people who, when they went to the ones that they wanted to go to, they had so much more fun. They had a better time. And it's like, see, this holiday was better for everybody because people weren't doing shit that they didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, same question, actually.
Okay. I think, what are the hardest? I feel like my life and therefore my holidays has changed so much over the last 3 years, like, because divorce and my parents moved to Costa Rica. And so like, I don't even know. I don't have typical holidays anymore. So I feel like in kind of recent years past, some of my issues have been my ex-husband didn't get along with my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so nobody enjoyed that. I feel like they're better about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Still not great, but better about it now than they used to be. My parents have expectations for my children that
Are not reasonable?
Are not reasonable, are sometimes not in line with the way that I parent. And so battling that, it's not just like battling the expectation, it's also like battling the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the shame that comes with like, yes, I'm standing up for my child and that's what's important to me, but like, do they think I'm a bad parent? Like, I know I'm not, but then I think I read something the other day that was like, most or a lot of parenting decisions that people struggle with, like, it's really not about the decision. It's how are people going to view me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is especially hard with family.
Mm-hmm.
What else have I struggled with around the holidays? The emotional labor.
Oh God, yes. Yep.
Jesus fucking Christ. Not only as a wife, but also as a mom. And now as a divorced mom, I still have my ex-husband's family sometimes reaching out to me like, what do the kids want? Do you also happen to know what Ross wants?
No, but you are more than welcome to go ask him.
So this year I created, I'm happy. It makes sense that I help people figure out what to get for my kids, especially like family that lives out of town and like doesn't spend a lot of time with them and, but they still want to send them something. I'm fine with that. So I made a list for me. I made a list for my kids, and my family is also like, well, what does Logan want? And so I did this in a Word document and I put Logan's name at the bottom and I shared the Word document with him. And when I sent out the list to people, I said, and Logan will fill in what he wants at some point. And I told him, I was like, and that's on you.
Yes. So if you get scented candles that you don't like.
Exactly.
And so I just want to point out too, that like you are willingly and happily taking on this emotional labor of not just your list, but your kids' list, right?
Yeah. For my kids. Yes.
Because
for my family.
Yes. Because there's a difference between saying, oh, it's just easier if I do it and it makes sense because you want to, and because if you don't, nobody else will do it.
Right. So in the past, like obviously years before now, my kids were even younger. And so yes, it really did make sense that I'm like making a list for my kids because like can't read and write, can't make their own, whatever. Right. And so, but then I would also make the list Ross's list because it's just easier. And I knew he wouldn't.
Yes.
And so like, that's where I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not repeating that this time around. And it's challenging when like Ross's family reaches out to me and they're like, oh, what do the kids want for Christmas? I'm like, ask Ross. And I've had less of that happen this year, which is good. But I mean, I'm glad his mom and I have a decent relationship, but she even texted me yesterday and was like, I want to get the kids this for Christmas. Like what size, which one do you think they'll like? And I'm like, curious, like what is her motivation behind texting me? Does she not think that Ross knows the size and what kind they will like? Did she happen to know that Ross was busy at the moment? Am I still just her default for questions for the kids? Like, what is it?
And I think that was the point too that I was looking for, is that like Yes, it makes sense for you to do the list, but also Ross is perfectly capable of adding to them. Like, he should know his kids well enough to know what they want for Christmas, even when they're really tiny and they can't read and write and tell you what they want. He should know what sizes they're in. He should be able to make this list with you. Like,
Yes.
even if you don't sit down together, because you're not together anymore, like when they were younger, that would have made more sense. But to
Yeah.
like also add things to the list, because you know your kids are doing different things with Ross than they are with you, so they
Yeah.
might have different things
So
that they
I made a
want.
list based on things that I know my kids want or need and that they have told me, and I sent it to my family. But I did not send it to Ross or his family. So
Yes.
they don't know that this list exists.
Unless they find my YouTube channel, and then they can get healthy humaning.
But then they still don't have access to my Google Doc because that's where I
This is
created
true.
it, right?
This is true.
So, yeah, it's also, I have to say, first of all, divorce is so fun. And I mean that like in a genuine way and also in a sarcastic way all at the same time, because both. But in the serious way, divorce is so fun because I think especially if you get married young or you start your relationship with the person young, even if you wait a while to get married, right? There's a lot of habits sometimes that you pick up, not realizing the impact it's going to have picking up that habit. Now, what's that going to look like in 10 years? What's that going to look like when we have kids?
Yes.
Right. And so like to undo habits is so hard. And so like to have gotten divorced and now I'm like starting this new relationship and I'm like, cool. Turns out now I know all the things I don't like and I'm in a better place. I know what I want and don't want. So I have the knowledge and I work with you. So now I also have the skills to be able to set these boundaries. So that way my holidays are more enjoyable.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that, because like that's kind of how I ended up where I am, was because I started this habit of making Chris's lunch in the morning and making him coffee because he asked me to one time, and then he asked me to twice, and then I just started doing it because I knew he was going to ask me anyway. And then I was pregnant and I was getting resentful and angry because he's perfectly capable, but if I didn't make his lunch for him, then he would just not eat for the whole day. And like, it was like, and so we had a come to Jesus conversation over it. And I was like, if you won't take care of yourself because I'm not taking care of you, there's bigger problems here. And like, this needs to stop. And so that's how I got to the, hey, by the way, I'm not making coffee for you in the morning and I'm not making you lunch anymore. What you do with that is on you, but I'm not going to listen to any complaints. I don't want to hear I'm so hungry when you get home, or I'm so tired, or like, that's on you. You are capable of managing your own damn self. You did it before you met me. You can do it now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's those habits, man.
Yeah. I also, one aspect that I didn't anticipate of me doing the emotional labor of like making the Christmas list for the kids and making Ross's Christmas list and doing the Christmas shopping for our kids and my family and Ross's family. He ended up with this mentality of, oh yeah, well, like she does all the things because she enjoys it, which I did enjoy it. But I wanted the option to not have to do it. I wanted the option of being like, yes, I'm happy to do it, so I'm going to do it. Not like, oh, it's assumed that I'm going to do it, right? I always want the option to say no. But I think because like I kind of took it all on, an unfortunate side effect was then Ross was like, oh shit, I still have one person to buy for. I stuffed the kids' stockings and I stuffed his stockings. And so then he would forget until December 23rd. Oh, wait. She does it for everybody else. Who's going to do it for her?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually have very, very big feelings about this particular topic. So the question that I have is, did he ever get the hang of it, or like was that until the last dying moment? Like,
Um, no, I think our last Christmas we were separated but still living in the same house. I don't even think he stuffed my stocking.
mhm,
I think my stocking laid empty. And then, but when his mom came into town, she brings stockings for everybody. And so I got one from her, but I did not get one from him and the kids.
mhm.
Um, and then before that, it was like a December 23rd. And then everything in my stocking came from Target.
Yep.
Or Walgreens.
Mm-hmm. Sheets here.
Yeah.
um, so that is a thing. That is a thing that is still a thing in this house. And I have feelings about it because I understand from the perspective of autonomy, my partners, Chris included, do not have to do the things for me.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I personally don't enjoy buying gifts for people just because it's Christmas. So there's that side of it where logically, objectively, I'm not mad about it. A little disappointed sometimes, but not mad. Like, nope, I totally respect your autonomy type thing. And like, yes, also I understand not buying gifts just because it's Christmas, because then you usually end up with crap that you don't want anyway.
Right.
And also, on the other side of it, it feels frustrating that to hear, well, I don't know what to get you. And like, be like, but there's all of these resources. So for 2 Christmases in a row, and this is something I talk about publicly anyway, so this is not like I'm violating Chris's privacy on this. This is something I have consent to talk about. But like 2 Christmases in a row, the only reason that I got gifts was because on December 24th, his girlfriend sat down and made him figure out what to do for me. And so like for 2 years in a row, I got cards with, oh, by the way, your present will be delivered on this day. And like, as soon as they stopped dating, the present stopped for like 2 years. And then he found like this really pretty bracelet thing in which my shit's all packed, so I can't even show you, but it's really, really pretty and I love it. And the following year, he got me more jewelry from that place, which I know I loved the first thing, but also I didn't love it so much that I would want more. Because not because the jewelry's not pretty, but because the way it's designed, it makes it uncomfortable to wear it when I'm working. And so like the only time I can wear it is when I go out, and we don't go out because pandemic and disability and like all of these things. So then it's just like, okay, cool, thank you, I appreciate it, but also I can't really use this. And so like it just is like we're raised to like, well, don't be selfish, don't be greedy, don't be whatever, but also we want that heartwarming feeling of, oh my God, you thought about me. And like,
yes,
you know, it just,
that's a need that I have.
right.
I need to feel loved and cared for and thought about.
Yes.
And I need that at Christmas time because, well, period.
Right.
But like, I do so much loving and caring and all of that at Christmas time. Like I need it to be reciprocated. It doesn't have to look exactly the way I think it has to look.
Right.
But
and also, so there is also that element of feeling left out on Christmas. Like you're the only person who doesn't have whatever. But the point that I also made is like, I would care less about it on Christmas. Like Christmas would feel less like a problem to me if it was happening the rest of the year. Like if you were just like, oh my God, I found this thing and I thought about you. And like, but like the one time of year there's peer pressure, to put thought into somebody and you're still not doing it, that
Yeah.
gives me feelings. Like
Yeah.
that makes me feel some kind of way. And so we had a conversation about this because I gave plenty of knowledge that I wanted to be celebrated for my birthday. It had been a really hard year, and like I wanted to be loved and cherished and adored and whatever. And my birthday came and went, and nobody said anything for weeks leading up. And I was like, well, Chris can't keep a surprise to save his life. So I know it's not a surprise party. And that's why nobody said anything to me. And so, like, I was really upset. I was like, this is something that I asked you for. Like, this isn't even just like, oh, it's my birthday, so you have to do something for me. This was, my birthday is the perfect opportunity for you to make me feel loved and cherished and celebrated. Because those are like my words this year is I want to be cherished and I want to be celebrated. And like, so I had big feelings about that. And we had a conversation afterwards. And I was like, so he made the point, he's like, you get into these hyperfixations and then you drop them. And I can't keep up. Like, you have all of these things that I could choose from, but I don't know what you are actively into at the moment. And so, like, it's hard to know. And I was like, well, I have an Amazon list, and that can usually tell you because it's by whatever's added most recently. And also, I was like, but then you can have a conversation with me. Hey, because I guarantee you, if you ask me what I want or what I'm into, or you tell me that you are struggling to come up with this, I will feel 1,000 times better if you show up with nothing than if you just say nothing and do nothing. But like, so I was like, okay, that is valid. Like, I can see, like, okay, this was the hyperfixation 6 weeks ago, but you haven't touched it in 3 weeks. So like, is this going to be a thing that you actively want? So I was like, so that was the whole thing of like, even if you don't know, ask, but also pay attention, because if you listen to the things that I say, I have repeated that I want XYZ thing. I don't even remember right now, like 4 times in the last 6 weeks. So like, it's not that the information is not available to you. You're just choosing not to use it. So anyway, tangent. I don't have feelings about that at all.
I have another friend similar. Okay. She every year, I've known her since I was pregnant with Evelyn, and Evelyn is 6. So I texted her this year and I was like, I don't actually know when your birthday is, because I know that this is your birthday month and you celebrate your birthday all month long. And she was like, I'm not even offended by that. Like, this is the actual day, but like, yeah, I want everybody to know that, like, this is my birthday month. Right. And she doesn't do it like in a spoiled, entitled way, but it's just like celebrating herself and her birthday all month long. And a couple of years ago, she told me her birthday is a couple of months before Christmas. And she was like, I'm really frustrated. Like, my husband, I mean, we have a favorite sports team, like, that we watch together. And so he got me like a t-shirt of that sports team. And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, I'm going to wear it. And like, yeah, I like the sports team, but like, does not feel like a special gift or a celebrate gift, or like a gift of like, hey, we've been married a while and you really know me, kind of thing. So fast forward a couple of months and Christmas rolls around, and we don't typically exchange gifts, but for whatever reason that year, like, she'd had a hard year and I was like, I really want to get you something. And so I got her a digital gift certificate to a store that I know she loves. And when I sent it to her, she was like, see, like, my husband could have done this. Like, it doesn't even have to be the item, but like, you know that I really like this store. And so that's thought went into it. Even if you didn't pick out the thing, like, thought went into it, and you picked this store because you know me. She was like, that's what I wanted him to do.
Yes. So I think so what's coming to mind is Amber's thing from that one call of like, I want to be seen and known and loved and cherished. Like,
I think she also said paid. See me, know
well,
me.
yes, but I mean, if my partners want to pay me, I will totally get on board with this. Like, yes. But yeah, like that's what was coming to mind is like, it's not even the gift itself. It's the being seen. It's the being understood. It's the being cherished. And like, you are worth this little tiny bit of effort. Yeah. Because that's what it feels like to be. Like, it feels like you are saying, I am not even worth that much effort. Because it's easier for me to say, well, I don't know, and throw my hands up than it is to, you know, spend an hour. And this I hear a lot too. So this is not just my experience. I love my husband so much. And also, the fact that he can spend weeks researching computer parts, researching sound systems, researching TVs, but can't spend an hour on my Amazon wish list is like, do you understand the message that this sends? I don't care if you get me the $1.50 sticker set that I have on there. I don't care because it's on there for a reason. I want it.
Right.
I don't need you to pick out the most expensive item on my list, or that's not what it is.
No.
It's, hey, I saw this and I know that this is something that you want. And also, I don't want you to feel left out when you're the one who wrapped all the presents and picked everything out. And
yes. So with the presents and the stocking and everything like that, like, it's the thoughtfulness of, I want you to have a good experience on Christmas.
Yes.
Like, I'm putting in the effort to make sure everybody else does, because you are my partner and you love me. I want you to also want me to have a good experience.
Yes.
I don't want to have to do it for you. I don't want to have to buy my own fucking gifts and wrap them and say that they're from you, because I've done that.
Me too. Me too. So, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this up and we are going to offer a service. People will be like, send this to my person, send this to my person, and we will forward it on. Your partner wants you to know. No, but seriously, that's $1 million idea that I have, that if I had any idea how to implement it, I would. It's up for the grabs. But like, you see that all the time. How do I send this to my husband without sending this to my husband? How do I send this to my wife without sending it to my wife? Like, that would be a great business idea.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it's like so complicated. One, I feel like it is talked about in such a hush-hush way in parenting groups because it typically follows a cis heteronormative pattern. The wife does all of the things and the husband does nothing. Like, yes, it doesn't always, but also 98% of the time it does.
Yes, I was just thinking, like, in my mind, I'm like envisioning this, like, even just a generic post. Like, what if we both just go and post and be like, husbands, don't forget that your wife wants to have a good experience on Christmas morning also. And I'm like, ugh, that's so gendered and sexist. And I'm like, but also kind of for a reason. Like, that's not to say that, like, you know, queer couples don't have the same issues, or
because
even
conditioned in the same society.
Like, sometimes the gender roles are flipped, obviously, but like,
yes,
it's like not all men, right? Sure, but also like so enough of them that like we could say this and it's gonna hit home for so many fucking people.
Right. And it's, everybody was conditioned by the same society too. So that, like, that's part of it too. Is like, even if the gender roles are flipped, it still came from the same fucking place.
Right. We all watched the same movies and TV shows when we were growing up that sent these messages without saying the things out loud.
Yes. Tell me without telling me. Yep.
Yep. Oh my gosh. That reminds me, not holiday related, but gender role related. I have these conversation cards that I bought years ago. They're intended. The name of this woman's business is Mentor for Moms. She's a coach and a mentor for moms. And so, like, it's a little bit gendered because that's what she chose when she started her business. And I know her personally. She was a stay-at-home mom of 7 children. And And so, but anyways, she had these conversation cards, like questions to ask your kids, like just to get conversation going. And so I found them yesterday in my office and I was flipping through them and I was reading them to Logan, like, oh, here are like questions and everything we can ask the kids. And then there were 2 cards back to back. And one of them was, how would you describe what mom does all day? And then the next card was, what do you think dad does all day? And I was like, the wording of that is assuming that the children see what mom does all day and they don't see what dad does all day. And it's like little things like that really do like build up these expectations and ideas of roles in society.
Yes, absolutely. Holy crap. That's like a little bit like, wow. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. It falls under like the hallmark, what do I call it? Something. I call it the hallmark effect. There you go. Of like that. Yeah, that's always how it is. And so the other thing that's been going around too, and it's the same way, it follows the same stereotypical gender norms, is like, husbands, don't get your wife a fucking vacuum cleaner for Christmas. Unless she specifically tells you, I want this very specific vacuum cleaner, don't do that.
I have gotten a vacuum cleaner for Christmas, and I did want a very specific vacuum cleaner for Christmas. I didn't necessarily want it for Christmas. I wanted this vacuum, and the only way I could justify our family buying that vacuum was if it was my Christmas present. We couldn't just spend the money on the vacuum. And so I needed it to be my Christmas present to be able to justify getting the one that I wanted and not just the good enough one.
Okay, question.
Mm-hmm.
Going back, because hindsight is 2020 and all of these things and all of the things that we've talked together and that we've worked through and that you've learned, going back, would you say that it was actually the only way to justify it? Or was that a byproduct of the stereotypical gender norms, like all of that things? Like, could that money have been spent on something else without qualms?
For me to get the vacuum that I wanted, not as a Christmas present, would have taken more convincing and justifying.
Right.
And so it could have happened, but it was more, this was the easy way out. I want this vacuum. We need a new vacuum. I want this vacuum. Christmas is coming. Why don't I just ask for it for Christmas? So that was the thing I got for Christmas. So there wasn't anything, and vacuuming is a thing that I enjoy. So it's like better than like, oh, I got the vacuum cleaner I wanted. It's not the same as like, I got the toilet bowl brush cleaner, but I hate cleaning toilets. You know, I do enjoy vacuuming, but like, it's not a hobby. It's not self-care. Like it's not something that brings me joy. Like I'm never like, I'm looking for something fun to do today. I'm going to vacuum. It's here's my list of house chores. Of course, the first one I'm going to do is vacuum because dopamine. And that's like the most enjoyable of all the chores, right? Mm-hmm. And so, so all of those things kind of went into it. And so this Logan and I had a conversation the other day about Christmas presents and like having been married before and like knowing, he was like, what did he ask me? He was like, oh, do you have a laminator? And I was like, I don't have a laminator. I actually have one on my Christmas list. He was like, oh, interesting. And so then we had a conversation about it because it's like business and personal overlap and everything like that. Cause like he needs one for business, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I have a laminator. It's not a Christmas present now. But then he was like, how do you feel about receiving practical gifts as Christmas presents? And I was like, it depends. And he was like, okay, because I have experience. He was like, I got my ex an air fryer and she was upset about it because she was like, well, now like I have to cook for you. And he was like, but you already do the cooking because you enjoy cooking and I don't. And you said you wanted an air fryer. So like I didn't buy you the air fryer with the expectation of like, oh, now you have to cook for me. Like I thought, right? And I was like, oh no, I've absolutely received an air fryer for Christmas. And it made me happy because I enjoy cooking and I wanted an air fryer. And so I put it on my list and like was like, I've also gotten a blender. I've also gotten a juicer. I've also gotten like new knives. Like, because doing household chores isn't a thing that brings me joy, right? And so getting a vacuum is not that, but like cooking, not quite as much anymore as it used to, but cooking used to bring me a lot of joy. It was a hobby, it was a pastime. And so even though these were practical things that the whole house could benefit from, like I wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it's one of those things where it's like there's a difference. Like the air fryer and the vacuum can be the same, but also they don't have to be the same.
The part that makes this not okay for me is that you had to convince and you had to like whatever. But like let's say Ross wanted a new bike. He likes to bike, right? Like would he have to convince you? Would he have to justify?
No, I would have to convince him to buy the bike. That's the thing.
Okay.
He found a bike once. Like, this is such a great, perfect example. I'm so happy you brought it up. He found this time trial bike on Facebook Marketplace. And like, unfortunately for me, I knew enough about bikes at that point from having so many conversations with him and like taking an interest in his interest. Like I knew what a good time trial bike was going, like what they are new and like what they are used. And this person was selling one in amazing condition for a fantastic price on Facebook Marketplace. He was like, I don't know, like money's a little bit tight right now. Like, can I justify it? I was like, get it. I was like, this isn't something like you can wait on, right? This is one person is selling this one item at a great price that you want. I was like, absolutely get it. And so, no, it was always me doing the convincing, regardless of who it was for, me or him.
Okay. Because like, to me, that makes that if you're making joint financial decisions and it's something for the household, the having to justify it as a Christmas present just doesn't sit right. Like that feels like painful, like really painful. And especially like
and so I also want to say, like, now I know better, and now like Logan and I are communicating differently. Then I never communicated with Ross that I didn't want this as a Christmas present, right? And I was happy to get it. And I was excited. I was excited the first time I vacuumed. So like, I was just thinking like, if he were to watch this now, this whole thing would feel really surprising for him to like hear all of this, because I didn't do a good job of communicating that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't have the conversation with him. Like I anticipated like, oh, this is going to be a whole thing. I want this vacuum. It's going to be so painful for me to try and get this vacuum, but I know I could get this vacuum for Christmas and eliminate all that problem, even though I would rather have other things for Christmas. Like none of those are needs. And this is kind of a need we have. And so it's like, right. And so I went and I picked out the vacuum and I brought it home and like I put it together and like I vacuumed the whole house and I was so excited. And I was like, oh my God, look at how much dirt it's getting. And like I kind of nerded out on it, but I didn't want that to be my Christmas present. I wanted to be able to nerd out on this because it's benefiting the whole family, because we all fucking make the house dirty. And thankfully, I wasn't the only person who vacuumed. He did do a lot of vacuuming.
Right. I just feel like that's like such an important part that gets missed too. And it's especially depending on the financial dynamics too. Like one of the groups that I'm in, this has been coming up a lot, of like, you know, we split the bills 50-50, but somehow he has the majority say in, or we make the same income or whatever, but he's got the majority say in how we spend the money. And like those kinds of things, they always make me be like, okay, we need more information here. Cause like, totally understand that that's the norm, and like you wouldn't have had all of this, like you didn't have any of this information, so it probably wouldn't have even occurred to you maybe at the time that like it could be different, like
Right.
depending on where you were in like your awareness journey. Like it may not even have occurred to you that there could be any other way for it to happen other than getting it as a Christmas present. But like it's one of those things that I lost my train of thought and I have no idea where I was going with that anymore. So it is what it is. But it's such a huge thing. Like and the fact that you had to do all of that emotional labor just to be able to present that as an idea for a Christmas present, that is also a thing that like I'm glad to see changing.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't be like that. Because Chris and I were talking about that this afternoon, I think. Like, me getting pans for Christmas, a pan set for Christmas, is a very different experience than him getting a pan set for Christmas.
Right.
Because I fucking hate cooking. If you got me a pan set for Christmas, I would think that you hate me. Because it is no secret that I hate cooking with a passion.
Right.
But as long as it was like, and that's the other thing too, is like, you know, in this example, the gender roles are reversed, but like Chris is very particular about the pan set that he gets. So going to Target and getting the most generic pan set and being like, Merry Christmas is not the same thing as like making sure that I'm getting the tools that he likes to use for this hobby that he enjoys doing.
Right.
It's not the same thing at all. Because you see that too. People are like, well, you wanted this. Well, no, I wanted a very specific version of this.
Yes. Yes.
And it becomes a whole thing. I think that somewhere along the line I was going with this point is like, I'm glad to see these conversations happening out more in the open and not just behind like the closed doors of like parenting groups, of mom groups specifically.
Yeah.
And happening more in the open, because in order for things to change, everybody has to have the awareness. Like the people who are used to doing all of the emotional labor need to realize that they're doing all of the emotional labor, and they need to realize that they can have other people do the emotional labor too. And
Right.
like the people who are,
I used to believe like that there really was some rule that like that's your job.
mm-hmm.
There's no fucking rule book. These rules don't exist.
But it's that message that gets layered and layered and layered and layered.
Right. Because I also saw it modeled in my home, not just like all these other places, but like, cool. You are a strong, independent woman, and I want to be a strong and independent woman. And as a strong and independent woman, you fucking do everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I must also do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I don't want to do everything. And I am still a strong and independent woman.
Yes. And like, it's funny too that I long forgot about this movie or this memory. So like my mom had surgery on her foot.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandparents were coming for Thanksgiving. And she was supposed to be fine by like whatever time. So my stepdad and my brother were roughhousing, and my brother fell on my mom's foot. She ended up having to have surgery again the day before Thanksgiving. Who made Thanksgiving dinner instead of the other adult in the household? It was me, with no experience, at least. So like my stepdad, he'll cook. He's a pretty good cook too. So like he had more experience with this stuff anyway, but somehow, oldest girl, it became my job. And like I literally had no idea what I was doing at all. Like no clue. And so like the way that just became the default, because that's what it has always been. And that's what like she did all of the holiday work. So if it wasn't her, I guess it was me.
Yeah.
like, I remember I'd sneak downstairs and I'd watch her wrapping presents. like I do remember at least twice seeing my stepdad down there helping too. So it wasn't as bad as some examples that people have grown up with where there was never any help in that. There was never any, that's not my job. But it was also definitely not fair and even in any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
But like, it just, whew, I remember that. And I'm like, wow, like how deep are those gender norms?
Yeah.
So
I also, one thing that so growing up, once I moved in with my aunt and uncle, Thanksgiving and Christmas, we have this, it's basically Thanksgiving dinner happens twice, Thanksgiving and Christmas, same meal, same process for all the things, right? It's just, we do it twice a year. And so she made everything from scratch. And so like the stuffing is a 2-day process because she made everything from scratch. And like eventually they started deep frying the turkey. And so he would deep fry the turkey while she did everything else. But like, so I have all of these memories of us, like it was such a process making all of these things, right? And so I have it because I have these, let me back up. I was going to say, because I have these fond memories of us doing all of this cooking, Aunt Sandy and I. They're not all fond memories. It was not always a pleasant experience. There was a lot of micromanaging.
mm-hmm.
And like, it's funny because Ross even said something about that when he came over for Thanksgiving dinner this year. He was like, how was it cooking Thanksgiving dinner without somebody being mean to you in the kitchen? But so anyway, for some reason I have it in my head, like for it to be, I think because the beginning part of my childhood was so fucked up and like nothing was stable and good and like normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever normal is, but like it was so chaos. And so then like we got these consistent things in my teenage years. And so now I'm like, I have to do it this way for it to be good enough for my kids. And so this year I insisted on cooking Thanksgiving dinner. I did not cook as many dishes as what I'm used to having, but I was like, here are the ones that are really important to me and Logan. This is what I'm cooking. And I did it. And it wasn't stressful. And I managed my time really well and everything got done at the same time. The turkey was a little bit undercooked.
Oh.
But we put it in the microwave and it was fine. Okay. Not the whole turkey, but we cut it up and we're like, these pieces are totally cooked and these pieces are a little bit underdone. So we're going to put them in. But it was my very first time cooking turkey. But Logan and I talked about it and he was like, okay, but like you can buy a fully smoked turkey at Costco. You can buy pre-made mashed potatoes and stuffing and all of these things. Like you can buy the pre-made versions of all of this stuff at Costco. And then we just have to warm it up. And like, then you can have a more relaxing day. Why don't we do that? And I have it stuck in my head that like, oh, that's not good enough. But why?
The only reason for me, and this might spark something in you, I don't know. The only reason for me that would not be good enough is because my dishes have very specific tastes associated with them. So if they're different, they will not taste the same. And my holiday will be ruined.
Yeah. The stuffing I made was not Aunt Sandy's homemade stuffing recipe this year, and I hated it. And I've had other stuffings that I do like. I think I just hated this one.
Right.
I ended up throwing most of it away. But like, I'm used to my family deep frying a turkey now. We don't have a deep fryer and I'm not about to deep fry a turkey. So like my turkey wasn't going to taste like their turkey anyway. So why didn't I just buy a smoked turkey that was guaranteed to be cooked all the way through?
Right. Like that I could be. So I am guaranteed to cook twice a year.
Okay.
Christmas and Thanksgiving. Even though I don't actually give a shit about holidays. To me, everybody has the same day off of work days. And so it makes sense to have food, and you may as well have the food that you're used to having.
Yeah.
So like, I literally don't give a shit about holidays. Like, I like the fact that I get to spend time with people who also have the day off of work. And that's my joy in it. I don't care about the rest. But I am guaranteed to make mashed potatoes and green bean casserole, because if those two things do not taste the way that I am used to them tasting my entire life, and they are very, very basic, and they are plain Jane, and they are certified white people food, because there is no seasoning to them, like, that's what makes it for me. I don't care what Chris does with the turkey. I don't care what
It's
other
the nostalgia of it.
Yeah.
Like,
And
yes,
like,
there are better versions out there, and somehow this is the one that still brings me joy.
and it's safe foods, because I know what to expect. I know what texture to expect. I know what taste to expect. It's not going to be any different. Somebody made the green bean casserole one year at my mom's house, and they used different green beans, so it tasted different. And it was just like, and the texture was different. And I was like, I know logically it's exactly the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I made green bean casserole this year.
Mm-hmm.
I hate green beans. I do not eat green bean casserole. And so Logan was like, I will make my own green bean casserole. But then I talked him into vacuuming instead.
That works.
And I was like, I asked you to vacuum. And it also led to him doing a few other things because ADHD brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, cool. Well, I'm still in the kitchen. Why don't I go ahead and make your green bean casserole? Is there a recipe? Because like, I just used the recipe that's on the back of the crispy onions package. And I was like, oh, cool. Can I add bacon and cheese to it for you? And he was like, always yes to bacon and cheese. And I was like, okay, good.
See, that's like me. I hate mushrooms, but that is the only time that I will eat mushrooms.
Mm.
I like literally yesterday, Chris made me an omelet in the same pan that he had made himself a mushroom and garlic omelet. And like, I could taste it, and I was like, and it was just like the residue from the pan. And I told you this was going to be too much. I told you.
Yeah. Logan can eat onions like in an awesome blossom, like deep fried onion, whatever. Right. And then crispy onions on top of the green bean casserole. But other than that, he does not like onions. And I have some cheese in the fridge that's made with caramelized onions. And so it has an onion flavor. And I ate a piece and then kissed him the other day. And he was like, oh my God, you smell like onions.
Yes, that was
But then he will devour deep fried onions.
Mm-hmm. Because it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. You get it.
So yeah, it's funny how, but like, that was the way that I set boundaries this year too, was like, because we had an open house for the weekend after Thanksgiving. So like, normally I make my 2 dishes and that's it. And then Chris will be like, will you help me with this? Will you help me with this? Will you help me with this? So I told him, I said, I will clean up as you go while you cook, because he's terrible at that. Like, he is just now getting to the point where he can time his food. But if he were to try and clean as he goes, then it would be all off again. Like, the first year he made Thanksgiving dinner, it was like 5.5 hours after he said food would be ready. But I told him, because of the showing, I will clean as you go this year. And also, I'm only making my 2 dishes. So if you need help, you need to ask somebody else. And I was so proud of myself, because he said, hey, can you do this thing for me? And I almost got up to do it. And I was like, no, but Jerry said he would be your sous chef. So he is ready and able to help you. And I was like, oh, look at me. I did it.
Yay.
But yeah,
holiday garbage. My own horn that I am much better at cleaning as I go than I used to be. Yay. For years, I was terrible at it. And so the kitchen was a disaster.
Mm-hmm. Chris is typically pretty good most of the year, but Thanksgiving, everything gets away from him. Like, he just hasn't mastered.
Thanksgiving was also so relaxing.
Yay.
I drank an entire bottle of champagne by myself before dinner even happened. So I was like, just like the perfect low-key tipsy. Like, not drunk at all ever at any point, but just like the slight buzz. where you can't help but have a stupid grin on your face all day. And like the kids were good, and like Logan was really helpful. And I like my kids and I like Logan, and there wasn't other people there. And so I was like, nobody was micromanaging me. I was in charge. It was great.
And you weren't cleaning baseboards and dusting light switches and
No, is that a thing that you've had to do on Thanksgiving?
yes, and also I know people who have done that, and I'm like, why can't you just enjoy the holiday? Like,
Yeah.
It's all part of the gender stereotypes, because I did have, like, I know we're over time, but like this is
I know this is the longest one we've ever done.
But like I was talking to, I don't know, one of the guys about like, yes, I know that you don't care about the house as much, and like I don't super care. Like I am not like my house is lived in, and people who come over, they know it. Like
Right.
it's
All houses are lived in, and I wish in general we accepted like, hey, houses sometimes look lived in.
right. And I was like, but there are some baseline things that I like done. Like I like the bathrooms touched up. I like the kitchen cleaned up before people come over. Like that's my thing. I was like, I understand it doesn't bother you, and you probably don't think twice about it. I was like, but people also aren't judging you based on the state of the house. I am the woman, therefore I get all of the judgment.
So totally different in our house. I let go of the expectation that my house had to look a certain way when I was a stay-at-home mom and I wanted to host play dates, but like I have kids and we're bringing kids, so why the fuck am I going to clean my house? Like, but there are some baseline things that I do. So in my current house, the baseline things are we make sure that the downstairs bathroom is clean. Ideally, I like to sweep or vacuum because we have a dog that has tumbleweeds of hair, and like it looks bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Logan and I both have ADHD, so we tend to accumulate a few piles of clutter here and there. And we're pretty good about like no pile stays there longer than like a week or two. And like that feels good to me. But like when we have people come over, we're like, let's put like which ones can we tackle real quick, and then it's done and out of the way. And like that's good enough for me. And like depending on the person, I don't even need to do that, right? Because there are some people where it's like, but you know me and you know my kids, and like whatever, why can't my house, this is just what my house happens. I want you to come over on Tuesday, and this is what my house looks like. Today's Tuesday. So I invited some people over to our house, and I invited them at like 3 p.m. to come over at like 7. And I told Logan, but he was like busy with work, and he was like, but our house is a mess. And I was like, it's not a mess. It's not like the cleanest, but like it's absolutely not a mess. And he was like, and our bushes outside need to be trimmed. And I was like, what? And like he had a couple of other things on the list, and he was like, I need more heads up before you invite people over. And I was like, why? Like, we're not hosting a party. Like, this is like real low key. It was the dads. I was still pregnant. The dads they wanted to come over and have ice cream with us and the kids. And like, that was it. And he was like, oh my gosh, but the house. And I was like, I don't know what to do, because I already invited them over. They're coming. And I also don't know how I feel about not inviting people over because the house isn't clean enough. And he was like, it's my mom like conditioned me. Like the house is not in good enough shape.
Mm-hmm.
Like you plan, like you clean your house before people come over. And I was like, oh yeah, I let go of that. I used to think that also before Ross and I had kids. And even when we just had one, like I did that also before we had people over. I cleaned the house. And then once I had a second kid, I like lowered my expectations a lot. And turns out it made me a lot happier.
Right.
So that's a work in progress over here, is like getting him to lower his expectations a little bit with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like anybody that I invite over absolutely would not judge me or would not care if my house was a pigsty, because clearly something must be going on, because I don't enjoy a messy house. Like I like, and it's funny because Jerry and I are different. Jerry can't stand clutter. I can't stand dirt or dust or whatever. And so like we're complete opposites on that. And like, so like he does not see dust. And I'm like, that's dusty. Why haven't you cleaned it? And he's like, what do you mean? And then like I'll walk by clutter. And also, so part of it too is boundaries of like not just picking up other people's shit because they've left it around. And that's the other thing. So like clutter bothers me to a degree, but also I'm learning to ignore it if it's not my problem, so that other people are taking responsibility for their stuff. But then it bothers him, and I'm like, either you need to talk to the person who the clutter belongs to, or you need to decide that it is important enough for you to take care of it and handle it, just like the dust.
So one thing that I have found unexpected that's nice about like this, Logan has lived in this house for 9 years before me moving in. Like this is his house. It's our house now, but like this is his house versus like when Ross and I moved into our last house together. How do I even put this into words? I had the mentality, Ross is not a cluttery person, especially compared to me. But like when he would leave clutter in certain places because it wasn't my clutter and because those are places that I don't typically clutter up, it bothered me. And I was like, why are you fucking up my house? And he was like, look at these 7 other piles you have, and you have a problem with my 2 very small ones. And I was like, I do. But like I moved into this house, and like when I started coming here long before I ever thought I was going to move into this house, right? And so like I got to see, I mean, you know, the first couple times it was very, very clean because he really cleaned before I came over, right? But then after a while, like I could see like, oh, this is where he accumulates clutter, is in these areas. And it doesn't bother me because I don't have the mentality of why are you fucking up my house? Like I was already conditioned to before moving in of like, oh, this is how this is. And so I'm curious if he ever has the mentality because, you know, my clutter accumulates in different areas and in different ways. If he's ever like.
So ask him and bring that to the next one. We're going to,
okay.
You have a homework assignment. What is your experience of this?
Okay.
Because I mean, it's been similar too, because like Jerry moved in with us. Chris and I already lived here, and we already had, you know, things were established and things were, but also one of my great joys is organizing things. So like I made places for the clutter. Like the most life-changing advice I ever got was like, look at where your clutter accumulates and then put the system there that you need to control it. And so like a lot of that stuff already existed, and Jerry just kind of like adapted. So it's been an experience.
Yeah.
So many people.
This went in so many different directions.
I know, right?
Well,
so if you need holiday help, I have the holiday helpline. I will be available in your back pocket 24/7 because I sleep really weird hours until January 2nd to help with all of your, you know, how do I go to my in-laws? How do I schedule everything? How do I make my husband buy gifts?
The holiday helpline exists until January 2nd. She sleeps really weird hours beyond January 2nd.
Yes.
That's how I interpreted it first, was the holiday helpline is available 24/7 because I sleep really weird hours until January 2nd. I was like, what's happening January 2nd? Oh, that's not what she meant.
Melatonin, that's what's happening. So, alrighty. I will talk to you later.
It's fun. Bye. Bye.
Oh,